It looks pretty wide, huh?
That's kind of funny. I'm just like, Mark, hit the wall, do a frontside ollie. Boom.
Dude, you know what? They should have made it so skate friendly, man. Bring fucking skaters in here with the white transitions all over the place. Right?
I mean, it's kind of a funny story how I got on blind. I knew Mark Gonzalez for a long time. He had like flowed me boards when I was like younger. Met him down like at Venice Beach and Charlie King's ramp in Burbank. And after that, I got on Powell, and we didn't really see each other for a long time. And somehow we ran into each other again, and it wasn't like, hey, we want to start a company and want you to ride for it, and that's how it started. It was me and Rudy just started skating with Mark, so we skated with him for like almost a year. We were staying at his house in Huntington Beach. We were like basically living there. He was coming and going and staying with his girlfriend, and like he had a mini ramp in his house, and we just basically lived there. And it was just a natural thing that happened. He was just like, hey, like, you know what I mean? Like, I want you guys to like skate for blind. And it was like pretty much we were already, you know, skating with this guy. Like, we were riding the product. And it was nothing against Powell. We were happy at Powell, but like, you know, we idolized Mark. We like, you know, respected him like as a skateboarder, and we wanted to be involved with him. You know what I mean? It was like him and Jason Lee, and it's like they gave us an opportunity, me and Rudy, to be a part of their team, and it's like we couldn't turn that down because, like, you know what I mean? It was just like, and it wasn't for money, it wasn't for anything else, because Powell was so big at that time. It was just, we just wanted to be a part of those guys, you know what I mean? And that was essentially how it happened. I'll tell a couple stories. I mean, I remember one of my first trips with blind was like driving down to, or driving up north to go skate with Mark. And it was where he did that long board slide on that flat rail. He like ollied up the stairs and board slid that long flat rail. And I remember like getting there and being like, I don't really think this dude's gonna be able to do this, you know what I mean? Because it was like pretty long for its time. And he ended up doing it and just like blew my mind. And then like that same trip, we went to Wallenberg where he was gonna like ollie the Wallenberg gap. And I was like, another time when I was just like, I don't think this dude's got this. I mean, especially after that first try, he lands Indian style, like, and I'm like, okay, he's hurt. And then like he just got back up and like did it. And then did that like classic little 180 after, and it was just like, you know, those are some amazing times, like where he just blew my mind, and just as a skateboarder, you know what I mean? Most of the funnest stuff with Mark was that like I did skate at night growing up like young and stuff, like in front of like, you know, your supermarkets or whatever, your parking lots, underground garages. But Mark was like really big on like, you know, from midnight to like 3 to 4, like be out skating and going hidden all these spots that you couldn't skate. Like, and this was kind of at a time where like security guards weren't really on to the night thing, you know what I mean? Now they are. Skateboarders, like, it's hard to even skate at night. But back then it was just like, it was open territory, like just, you know, Wilshire, wherever, you know what I mean? Huntington, like, and those were pretty cool sessions, you know what I mean? The story was that I grew up in the Valley, and you know, Mark and Jason were like down in Huntington. And then once we started like hanging out, I had some friends. It was Francois and Jesse, and I was up in North Hollywood. Yeah, it was North Hollywood area. And Jason, somehow, like, you know, we were really good friends with the Rabisis, and Jason came down and started hanging out, and he actually ended up dating Marissa Rabisi, which was like a close friend of me and my friends, and he ended up moving into her house. So Jason now like lived where I was, like, he lived like a couple blocks from where I hung out every day, and that's when like me and Jason really bonded and just started skating a lot. And it was just like, it was just amazing, because instead of it being more like a thing, like a mission, like, oh, I'm gonna go get to skate with Jason, it was like on an everyday basis, like, I was going out with Jason. I was hanging out. They were gonna have dinner at their house. We're going out to dinner. It's like that's when we became more friends than just like, you know what I mean? The dude that like got me on the team and a guy I looked up to. We became more friends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember a time like I think it was one of our first. One of our first trips. We went down to Vegas, and it was me, Mark, Rudy, and Spike. I probably told this story before, but we were like, there was those 2 rails, gap to rails in like Las Vegas. I think it was like at the Caesar's Palace. Mark wanted to skate those. We went down there. We were getting kicked out of everywhere, and these cops pull us over, and they start asking us for our names and stuff. And I think it was Spike. Was one of the first ones. He was like Adam Spiegel. And so me and Rudy were like, okay, we get it. It's like, you know, it's the fake name game. We've all done this. So we started throwing out names. Like, I'm like Tony Hawk. Rudy's like Dave Duncan. And then Mark goes and he's like Mark Gonzalez. And we're like, what a pussy. Like, why didn't he go for it? You know what I mean? And, you know, the cop walks away to go start running the names. And they're like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, you know what I mean? And we're like, what? He's doing like Adam Spiegel. And it's like, they're like, Spike Jones is not his real name. And that was how we first found that out. And like at the time, I could just remember Mark going like, and Dave Duncan, like out of all the people, like, you know that dude's gonna have something on his rap sheet. You know what I mean? Like, that was a pretty good story. And I think that story in Vegas was pretty cool too, because Mark and Spike had went out to like, I think go have fun in Vegas. I think they went out drinking. They're pretty like rowdy guys, like when they like get around each other. So they came, and then me and Rudy actually stayed back at the hotel, and we like hit up the mini bar, and like we got like a little drunk. They came back a little drunk, and I think we were like all like barely still getting kind of familiar with each other. But I remember like all 4 of us were kind of wasted, like, and I don't know, a little bonding experience. Remember, like, you know, like back in the day, it's like I guess people viewed it as some type of beef between like, you know, Steve Rocco and Powell Peralta and all this, and maybe there was this kind of thing, but it's like it had nothing really to do with me or like Rudy, you know what I mean? But I remember there were some T-shirts made. It was like Powell did something like saying like, you know, that I remember they called us like that we were like brainwashed victims or something. So like, you know, like we all printed up these shirts with our faces on it that said brainwashed victims, and it wasn't, I never had no resentment towards like Powell or anything like that. It's just, I was just like following my dream as like where I wanted to be, you know what I mean? And there was a good story, like I was already skating for blind, and it was my first AM contest. And I remember I took this like super hard fall in my run, and like I couldn't really get up. And like the team manager of Powell at the time, like Todd Hastings, like ran out there and like carried me off the course. And it was like pretty sick though, like, you know what I mean? Like besides all that like stupid shit, like it wasn't like, you know what I mean? Like there was no beef, like, you know what I mean? It's like we all still had love for each other. We all shared those times. It's just things moved on, you know what I mean? But like I always respected like Todd, like, you know, that was like, that meant a lot to me when Todd did that at that contest. Oh. Here it comes down. Interview, but Rudy had been teaching me to drive a little bit, but I think like, you know, obviously even if you were to get behind this car now, it's a bit bigger. It's kind of sketchy, and those roads and like TJ are pretty skinny and narrow, and like it was on the side of a cliff. So you could tell even in the video, I think I'm just like trying to like look over this hood and get a good visual on it, you know what I mean? And for a lot of people always like get bummed out. They always get let down when they find out that like I think like we dumped some of the liquor out and was like drinking some. Oh, I had some drinking some water. Jason, good to see you. Yeah, but I think I was drinking water. But some dude did crack some beers. Like you could tell Jordan like when he pops his like bottle, it's like foaming. He's like really drinking and stuff. But we weren't getting like hammered or anything and like driving. But I remember like when they did set the car up to like stage that like driving it off the cliff, it was like, I think it was something that no one has done. It was illegal. There was no, like it wasn't a permitted thing. It was like stick, okay, hang on, how are we gonna get the stick on the gas pedal, keep the car floored while it's in neutral, And I think you have to pass reverse to get into drive or something, like really weird, but it was just like someone's trying to like lean in through the door, stay out of the shot and stick this in. And it's like basically a one-shot thing. If it didn't work, like it probably wasn't gonna happen again. And it was super successful. The car even like, you know, like we were like wanting it to flip more, but it like just kept driving, and then it drove all the way down into that ditch and like hit it, and like we were super psyched. I remember I filmed actually, like we set up, we had a bunch of cameras, and I actually filmed one of those clips. I think you could have made a shot in it. I'd go with like Mark Gonzalez, you know what I mean? Mark's always been like one of my favorites. His style is amazing. He broke a lot of like limits in skateboarding with like the double kinks, the nose blunt slides, Wallenberg, like switch 180s. Just like cool, like I liked how his part was like edited to some different style of music that was like going on around the time, you know what I mean? It was like jazzy and flowy, and it really like went along with the dude's style. And just like the 180, like fakey 50-50 and like half cabs the stairs, and it's just like, you know what I mean? It was like, you could tell everything was like pretty natural, you know what I mean? And I know back then, like Mark and Jason were filming themselves a lot, so it wasn't like too like professional, but like it really came out good still, you know? I probably said in the interview, it's like there was things like when Mark did the 180 switch feeble and like came out like straight, it's like that was so far ahead of its time that it's like it wasn't until like a couple of years ago Chris Cole started doing that trick, and I think that was like the last one out of like Mark's stuff to be done, you know what I mean? Where like, you know, that video still held the weight of like all those years, and you still got like the lines of like, you know, one of the sickest lines in that new Habitat video is like Austin Gillette does the 180 switch 50. He turns around, does whatever, and does that backside 180 fakey 50-50, and it's like that was stuff Mark was doing. It's like that's how ahead of his time he was, where we probably looked at that and was just like, well, that's just another weird Mark trick, but it's just like, you know what I mean? And that's how it was for me. It's like Mark would always like, you know, he changed skateboarding. Like he would be like, I need a longer nose because I want to do a nose slide, but I don't want to just blanket. I want to sit on it and slide like 10 feet. And we're like, that would be stupid. You know what I mean? Or that would be weird, or that wouldn't work out. Or like, you know, with the nose once and all these weird type of things. And that's what's weird now, because like, you know, sometimes he'll like say like, guy, I want to make trucks, but they're backwards, and they sit on these two like type of weird axles with a circular round of boards, and you can actually do things. And in my head I go, oh, like that's probably not the coolest thing to do, but who knows? Because like I was like wrong back then, so am I wrong right now? You know what I mean? Maybe he's still like, you know, on a different, using a different part of his brain for skateboarding. I mean, once you've probably done so much, you kind of always get bored with the ordinary stuff, and like, you know, you move on, you do different stuff with it. I mean, he's definitely one of the guys that he's very artistic with his skateboarding, and you know what I mean? It's more about like, you know, the pictures he paints with it and just whatever. It's just an open canvas for the dude. And it's sick too to just see like he is an actual artist too, where he does paint and like expresses it in other ways, you know what I mean?
Where'd Jason go from? So this graphic was my first pro model ever, done by Mark. Sure, he was just hanging out, and we put Toyota. Toyota was the car I had, and I think you were into Toyota too. Yeah. Then experimental was because we always loved Jesse Martinez board in Venice. Like he never had a pro model, but he always had the experimental pound one. So Mark just fucking put it gigantic across the whole top, and I had my fucking experimental.
So I got another blind story about my man Rudy Johnson right here. He had that graphic with the 40 Old E bottle on it, but he had never drank one. So we were sitting in front of my mom's house, and he buys one at the store, brown bag, from 40. We're all sitting in his 5.0 because he's making $2,000 a month now. And he starts drinking this thing, like halfway down, we're like, how is it? And he's like, I'm catching a little buzz, Starts getting down the end, it's like, it's a little warm, man, it's getting harder to drink. Last sip, just pukes out the window, all of this thing, and we're like, fuck it, it's official, you can have the graphic, dude, you did it.
It made me real fucking sick the whole night. It was
Yeah,
like
that's
black
some
me
nasty
out.
stuff, man. That's nasty stuff. That was the drink at the time. Saiyanides
Yeah.
and Old English. And you'd get about this much left, and it was like warm bath water. It was nasty.
And then, what was another good thing? I guess, like in the blind video, like, cut it. Cut all that. No, don't use that.
I got a
Seriously, I'll
story.
sue
I
you.
got a